My mother-in-law suddenly told me I wasn't allowed on the family trip because daughters-in-law aren't a part of the real family. She said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather. We were standing in her kitchen while I helped arrange flowers for her anniversary party. My husband Theo was upstairs with his dad. The cabin only sleeps 6 comfortably, she continued, and with both my sons, their father, me, and the grandchildren. Well, you can see the math doesn't work. I stood there holding baby's breath, processing what I'd just heard. We'd been married for 3 years. I'd spent every holiday at their house, listened to her complain about book club, helped my father-in-law set up his phone, but apparently, I still wasn't family. What about Violet? I asked, referring to Theo's brother's girlfriend. Oh, she's not coming either, she said brightly. It's always been that way, except it hadn't. I'd seen the photos. Theo's grandmother had gone on these trips. Every woman in the family had been included until suddenly they weren't. I didn't tell Theo that night. I just watched as he packed his bag, excited about teaching our 5-year-old daughter how to fish. When he kissed me goodbye, I smiled and waved from the porch. Then I tracked his phone, the family tracking app we'd set up for emergencies. I watched that little dot drive north for 6 hours, then stop. But it didn't stop at the cabin in Wisconsin. It stopped at a resort in Minnesota, 3 states away. I pulled up the resort's website. The Grandview Lodge, 5-star accommodations, spa services, golf course. This wasn't their rustic fishing cabin. I found his mom's credit card statement from last month. She'd paid a $3,000 deposit for a family reunion package. My hands shook as I scrolled through the details. Premium suites, catered meals, professional family photos. This wasn't casual. This was planned. And every woman who'd married into the family had been deliberately excluded. I called Violet. She picked up on the first ring. Did you know they're not at the cabin? I said. Silence. Then, how did you find out? I tracked Theo's phone. They're at some resort. I know, she whispered. I found receipts last week, but it's worse than you think. What do you mean? Check your husband's email. The password is his mom's birthday. Trust me, I shouldn't have. But I logged into Theo's account anyway, my heart pounding. There, buried in a folder labeled Family Matters, were dozens of emails. Messages between him, his brother, and his parents discussing the trip, discussing specifically how to keep me and Violet away. But that's not what made my blood run cold. It was an email from 2 weeks ago. The subject line read, Updated Trust Documents. I clicked it open. My father-in-law had revised his will. The family business, the properties, the investment accounts, everything was being reorganized. And according to these documents, only blood relatives would inherit. Daughters-in-law were explicitly excluded. The trip wasn't a vacation. It was a signing ceremony. They were having everyone sign new family trust documents that would cut me out of everything, including my own daughter's inheritance unless certain conditions were met. Conditions I hadn't agreed to. Conditions I didn't even know existed. My phone buzzed. A text from Theo. Miss you. Caught a huge base. Wish you were here. I stared at that message. At the lie. At 3 years of family dinners and holidays and me believing I belonged. I looked at our daughter's baby photos on the wall, the ones where my in-laws were holding her, claiming her as theirs while plotting to cut her out. I opened my laptop and started making calls, first to a lawyer, then to my dad, then to Violet, who answered immediately. We need to meet, I said. Right now. What are you thinking? I pulled up the trust documents again, studying every page, every clause. That's when I saw it. A single sentence buried in the legal jargon that changed everything. A loophole so massive that whoever drafted these documents had either been incompetent or deliberately sabotaged the whole thing. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Violet arrived at my house within the hour. We spread the documents across my dining room table while my daughter slept upstairs. I'd printed everything from Theo's email, over 200 pages of correspondence, financial statements, and legal paperwork. Show me, Violet said. I pointed to section 7, subsection C. Read this part. Her eyes scanned the page, then widened. Oh my God. The trust automatically transfers to spouses upon death, I said. But only if those spouses are legally married at the time of signing, which means they're trying to exclude us now. But the second something happens to Theo or his brother, we'd have legal claim to everything anyway. Violet sat back. This doesn't protect them at all. It just pisses us off. It gets better, I said, pulling up another document. Look at the business structure. Your boyfriend's company stock? It's held jointly with him. Minnesota is a community property state for business assets acquired during common law marriage. We're not married, Violet said. You've lived together for 4 years. You file joint tax returns. You have a shared bank account. I showed her the statute on my laptop. Legally, you might as well be. Violet's hands were shaking. So what do we do? I'd been thinking about this since I'd found the emails. About 3 years of being treated like an outsider while playing the perfect daughter-in-law. About watching my mother-in-law take credit for raising my daughter while planning to cut her out of family money. We document everything, I said. Every email, every text, every conversation where they discussed excluding us. Then we wait for them to come home and confront them with lawyers present. They'll deny it. They signed the emails. They paid for the trip with traceable credit cards. And look at this. I pulled up another email. Your boyfriend literally wrote, Mom's right. We need to protect family assets from outsiders. That's you. He called you an outsider. Violet's face went pale. She'd been with Theo's brother for 4 years. They had a dog together. She'd helped him through his father's first health scare. There's something else, I said quietly. The life insurance policies. Theo's names me as beneficiary, but there's a clause that reverts to his parents if we divorce within 5 years of his death. His brother has the same clause. Jesus. Violet put her head in her hands. They've been planning this for how long? I scrolled through the emails. The oldest was dated 8 months ago, right after my father-in-law's annual physical showed elevated blood pressure. They're not trying to protect the family, I said. They're trying to protect themselves. From us. Like we're gold diggers who married their precious sons for money. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Theo. This time a photo of him and our daughter on a boat. She was smiling, holding a fishing rod. The caption read, "Making memories." I forwarded it to Violet. Meanwhile, we're making evidence. We spent the rest of the night organizing everything into a timeline. Every slight, every exclusion, every time we'd been treated as less than. The Christmas where they'd given us gift cards while blood relatives got jewelry. The baby shower where my mother-in-law had announced she was setting up a college fund for my daughter, but only she would control it. At 3 a.m., Violet looked up from her laptop. I found something else. Your father-in-law's company just took out a $2 million loan. The collateral is the family business, but the personal guarantors are Theo and his brother. Meaning? Meaning, if the company defaults, your husband and mine are personally liable. But according to these trust documents, that debt doesn't transfer with the business assets. I felt sick. They're setting up their sons to take the fall if something goes wrong, while protecting their own assets in the trust. Violet's voice was cold. These people really thought this through. The lawyer I'd called earlier emailed back at 6 a.m. She'd reviewed the documents I'd sent. Her message was 2 sentences. This is actionable. Call me when you're ready to proceed. I made coffee and watched the sunrise. In 12 hours, Theo would be home. He'd walk through that door with our daughter, probably with some elaborate story about the resort being a last-minute upgrade. He'd kiss me and ask what I'd done while they were gone, and I'd have to decide whether to blow up my entire life or stay quiet. My phone rang. My dad. "I've been up all night reading what you sent," he said. "Honey, you need to get your own lawyer. Not the family lawyer. Your own." I already did. Good. Because what they're doing, it's legal, but it's designed to trap you. The trust conditions, the life insurance clauses, the business structure. If you stay married to Theo, you'll spend your life watching your daughter get scraps while they control everything. And if I leave, you'll have 3 years of documented marriage, joint assets, and proof they deliberately tried to defraud you of marital property. His voice softened. I'm not saying divorce him. I'm saying protect yourself. After we hung up, I stared at my wedding photo on the mantle. Theo and me on the beach, laughing. His parents behind us, beaming. I'd thought they accepted me, loved me even. I took the photo down and looked at the back. Written in my mother-in-law's handwriting, the Callahan family plus guest. 3 years, and I was still just a guest. Violet came back over at noon with her own lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia who specialized in family wealth disputes. We sat in my living room while Patricia reviewed everything. "Here's what you need to understand," Patricia said. "This trust is designed to create dependency. You stay married, you get access to nothing. You divorce, you lose even the possibility of inheritance, and your children are held hostage in the middle. So what do?" I asked. "You have leverage they don't know about. The business debt, the community property claims, the documented exclusion, and most importantly this." She pointed to a section I'd missed. "The trust requires unanimous family consent to modify. That includes spouses legally married at the time of any changes." I read it again. "But they're signing it now. Without us." Exactly. Which means any signatures obtained this weekend are potentially invalid if they materially affect your marital property rights without your consent. Violet leaned forward. "So the whole thing is garbage?" "Not garbage, but challengeable, especially in Minnesota where they're signing it." Patricia smiled. "They picked the wrong state to play these games. We spent the afternoon drafting a legal response. Not a lawsuit, not yet. Just a letter informing my father-in-law that any changes to family assets would be contested on grounds of spousal rights and fraudulent concealment. Send it Monday morning," Patricia advised. "Let them come home. Let them think they won. Then hit them with reality." Theo's car pulled into the driveway at 7 p.m. I watched from the window as he lifted our daughter out of her car seat. She was sunburned and happy, chattering about the fish she'd caught. I opened the door with a smile. "Welcome home. How was the cabin?" Theo kissed me. "Amazing. The lake was perfect. You would have loved it." "The lake at Grandview Lodge?" I asked sweetly. He froze, just for a second, then recovered. "What?" "The resort in Minnesota. The one that cost $500 a night. That lake." Our daughter ran past us toward her room. Theo set down his bag slowly. "I can explain." "Don't." I pulled out my phone and showed him the tracking app. "I know where you were. I know what you were doing. And I know about the trust." The color drained from his face. "You went through my email? You plotted with your family to cut me out of everything we've built together. I think invading your privacy is pretty low on the list of problems here." He ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit. "It's not what you think. Mom just wanted to protect what? Your inheritance? From me? I've never asked your family for a single dollar, Theo. I work, I contribute, I take care of our daughter and your parents, and I show up for every holiday and every obligation." My voice cracked. "And you called me an outsider. I never need to protect family assets from outsiders. That's what you wrote. I have the email." He sank onto the couch. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then quietly, "Mom said it was standard practice, that all wealthy families do this. Keep business and marriage separate. Did you read the documents before you signed them?" Silent. "Theo, did you read them?" "I skimmed them. Dad's lawyer said it was just updating beneficiaries, and your daughter loses her inheritance if I divorce you. Did you know that?" His head snapped up. "What?" No, that can't be right. I pulled out the printed sections and handed them to him, watched as he read through them, watched his face change as he realized what he'd agreed to. Oh my God, he whispered. They said this was just to protect against estate taxes. It's to protect against me. And Violet, your brother signed the same thing. Theo looked at me, really looked at me. What do we do? That was the question, the one I'd been asking myself all weekend. I could walk away, take my daughter and file for divorce and fight this in court for years, or I could stay and spend my life knowing my husband's family saw me as a threat. I have a lawyer, I said. She's sending a letter to your parents on Monday explaining that these documents are legally problematic and that any modifications to family assets require spousal consent under Minnesota law. You're suing my parents? I'm protecting my daughter and myself. And honestly, Theo, I'm protecting you too, because you signed documents you didn't read that make you personally liable for your dad's business debts. He went pale again. What? I showed him the loan documents, the personal guarantee, the way the trust separated asset protection from debt obligation. Your parents set you up to take the fall if anything goes wrong with the company. You and your brother both. Theo stared at the papers like they might bite him. Why would they do that? Because they're protecting themselves and using you to do it. My phone buzzed. A text from Violet. His brother just called him. Family emergency meeting tomorrow morning. I showed Theo the message. They know. Your mom probably called her lawyer as soon as she got my tracking notification. You're still tracking my phone? You're still lying to me about family trips. He couldn't argue with that. The family meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. at my in-laws' house. Theo asked if I'd go with him. I said only if Patricia came too. This is a family matter, he said. Then I guess I'm not invited, since I'm not really family. He flinched. That's not fair. Neither is excluding me from a trip and calling me an outsider. But here we are. Sunday night, I put our daughter to bed and sat in the dark living room. Theo was upstairs, probably on the phone with his brother. I could hear his muffled voice through the ceiling, defensive and confused. My phone lit up with a message from my dad. Whatever you decide, I'm proud of you. You're handling this with more grace than they deserve. I wasn't sure about grace. I felt angry and hurt and exhausted, but I also felt clear-headed for the first time in days. I wasn't crazy for feeling excluded. I wasn't paranoid for tracking Theo's phone. My instincts had been right all along. Violet called at midnight. Patricia says we have them cornered. The trust is either invalid or modifiable. Either way, they can't enforce it as written. What about our relationships? I asked. Theo's barely speaking to me. How's it going with you and his brother? About the same. He keeps saying I'm overreacting, that it's just paperwork. She paused. I asked him if he'd be okay with me excluding him from my family's decisions. He said that's different because my family doesn't have money. Jesus. Yeah, really makes you see things clearly, doesn't it? We hung up and I went upstairs. Theo was in bed staring at the ceiling. I've been thinking, he said, about why Mom wanted the trust updated, about what's changed in the last year. I sat on the edge of the bed. What changed? Dad's health, his blood pressure, the heart palpitations. He's scared. Theo turned to look at me. I think Mom's scared too, that he'll die and the business will fall apart and we'll all lose everything. So her solution was to exclude the daughters-in-law? Her solution was to consolidate control, keep everything in the bloodline so it can't be split up if marriages fail. He sat up. She watched her sister go through a bad divorce, watched her brother-in-law take half of everything. I think she's been paranoid ever since. That doesn't make this okay. I know. I'm just trying to understand it. I understood it too, in a way. Fear makes people do terrible things. But understanding didn't erase the hurt, didn't change what they'd done. The meeting tomorrow, I said. I need you to have my back. What does that mean? It means if your mom tries to blame me or Violet for causing problems, you shut it down. It means you acknowledge that excluding us was wrong. It means you stand up for your wife and your daughter. Theo was quiet for a long time. Then, okay, I'll have your back. I wanted to believe him, but I'd learned this weekend that wanting something doesn't make it true. The next morning, Patricia met us at the house. My mother-in-law opened the door, her smile brittle. This is a family meeting, she said, looking at Patricia. I'm Mrs. Callahan's legal counsel, Patricia replied smoothly. I'm here to discuss the trust documents signed this weekend. My father-in-law appeared behind his wife. There's nothing to discuss. The trust is finalized. Actually, Patricia said, pulling out her briefcase, there's quite a bit to discuss, starting with how you obtained signatures on documents that materially affect spousal property rights without proper disclosure. We stood in the foyer like a Western standoff. Finally, my mother-in-law stepped aside. Fine, come in. The living room was tense. Theo's brother was already there with Violet. Everyone sat on opposite sides of the room like warring factions. Patricia laid out the situation calmly. The legal problems with the trust, the personal guarantees that put the sons at risk, the way the documents had been concealed from spouses who had legitimate property interests. My father-in-law turned red. This is a family matter, not a legal matter. It became a legal matter when you created binding contracts without full disclosure, Patricia countered. Now we can resolve this reasonably, or we can resolve it in court. Your choice. You're threatening us? My mother-in-law hissed. I'm informing you of your options. Patricia's voice remained even. Option 1, revise the trust to include reasonable protections for all family members, including spouses. Option 2, dissolve the trust and return to individual estate planning. Option 3, proceed as is and face legal challenges that could tie up your assets for years. The room was silent except for the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Theo cleared his throat. Mom, Dad, why didn't you just talk to us about this? Because you would have told them, his mother said, gesturing at me and Violet, and they would have objected. Of course we would have objected, I said. You're cutting us out of our own family. You're not family, she snapped. You're wives. And wives leave. There it was. The real fear. Not about money or business or estate taxes. About abandonment. About losing control. Grandma didn't leave, I said quietly. She was married to Grandpa for 54 years. She was at every family event, raised your kids, and never asked for anything except to be treated like she belonged. My mother-in-law's face crumpled slightly. That was different. Why? Because she married in before the money? Before the business took off? I leaned forward. I fell in love with your son when he was working retail and living in a studio apartment. I didn't marry him for the family business because I didn't know there was one until after the wedding. And I've never asked you for anything except to be treated with basic respect. Violet spoke up. I've been with your son for 4 years. I helped him start his business. I worked 60-hour weeks while he got his MBA. I'm not going anywhere. People say that until they don't, my mother-in-law said bitterly. Then make us sign prenups, I said. Make us waive inheritance rights. Make us do whatever legal thing actually protects you. But don't lie to us. Don't exclude us from family trips and call us outsiders while expecting us to show up for every holiday and help with every problem. My father-in-law spoke for the first time in minutes. What do you want? I want my daughter's inheritance protected, whether I'm married to your son or not. I want transparency about family finances that affect my household, and I want to be treated like a member of this family, not a temporary guest. I looked at Theo, and I want my husband to stop choosing his mother's fear over his wife's dignity. Theo met my eyes. Then he turned to his parents. She's right. This whole thing was wrong. You should have talked to us, all of us. His brother shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. We were trying to protect you, my mother-in-law said, tears forming. By lying to us? By making us sneak around? By putting our marriages at risk? Theo shook his head. That's not protection, Mom. That's control. Patricia let the silence sit for a moment, then spoke. I've drafted a revised trust structure. It protects the family business while ensuring all grandchildren receive equal treatment regardless of their parents' marital status. It removes the personal debt guarantees from the sons and creates proper liability protection. And it includes provisions for spouses who've been married longer than 3 years. She slid copies across the coffee table. Review it with your lawyer. If you agree, we can resolve this today. If not, we file objections to the current trust and let a judge sort it out. My father-in-law picked up the document, started reading. His expression gradually shifted from defensive to thoughtful. This is actually better structured, he admitted. The liability protection, we should have had this from the start. Your lawyer was focused on excluding spouses, Patricia said, not on actually protecting your assets or your sons. They read in silence for 15 minutes. Finally, my mother-in-law looked up at me. I didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. I know you're scared, I said. I know you're trying to protect what you've built. But you can't build walls around your family and expect us to stay inside them. It doesn't work that way. She nodded slowly, wiped her eyes. We'll have our lawyer review this, my father-in-law said, but it looks reasonable. Patricia stood. I'll expect a response by Friday. In the meantime, the current trust documents should be considered under negotiation and not binding. We left together, all of us. In the driveway, Violet grabbed my hand. We did it, she whispered. We survived it, I corrected. There's a difference. Theo and I drove home in silence. Our daughter was at my parents' house, giving us time to sort through this mess. When we pulled into our driveway, he turned off the car but didn't move. I'm sorry, he said finally, for all of it. For not reading the documents, for not questioning my parents, for choosing their comfort over your dignity. Why did you? I asked. Choose them? Because it was easier. Because I've spent my whole life trying to keep the peace. Because I was scared of what would happen if I pushed back. He looked at me. But I'm more scared of losing you. I'm not sure we survive this, Theo. I know, but I want to try. I want to be the husband who has your back instead of the son who does whatever his mother says. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to think one conversation could fix 3 years of being treated like an outsider. But trust doesn't rebuild that fast. We need counseling, I said. Real counseling. Not your mom's friend who'll tell you I'm overreacting. Okay. And you need to set boundaries with your parents. Real ones. Okay. And if you ever lie to me about a family trip again, I'm gone. Do you understand? No second chances. He reached for my hand. I understand. We sat there in the car, holding hands, while the sun set behind our house. I didn't know if we'd make it. Didn't know if Theo could actually change or if his mother would undermine every boundary we set. But I knew I'd fought for myself and my daughter. I'd stood up instead of staying quiet. And maybe that was enough for today. 2 weeks later, my father-in-law's lawyer approved Patricia's revised trust. The new documents protected everyone equally, removed the liability trap, and explicitly included all grandchildren, regardless of parental marital status. My mother-in-law sent a text. Family dinner Sunday. Everyone invited. I showed it to Theo. What do you think? I think we go, he said. But we leave if anyone makes you uncomfortable. At dinner, my mother-in-law served roast chicken. The conversation was stilted at first, everyone dancing around what had happened. Then my daughter asked if we were going on a family trip soon. Actually, my father-in-law said, we're planning a real cabin trip for Christmas. All of us. He looked at me when he said it. All of us. That sounds nice, I said carefully. My mother-in-law set down her wine glass. I want to say something. I was wrong. About how I treated you girls. About excluding you. About calling you outsiders. She took a shaky breath. You're not outsiders. You're our daughters. And I'm sorry it took a legal fight for me to remember that. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the hurt or the broken trust, but it was a start. After dinner, as Theo and I loaded our daughter into the car, Violet pulled me aside. You know what the craziest part is? She said. We almost didn't fight back. We almost just accepted being treated like that. But we didn't. No, she smiled. We didn't. I drove home thinking about all the women in my mother-in-law's family photos, the grandmothers and great-grandmothers who'd been included, who'd belonged, and I thought about how close I'd come to losing that. to letting my daughter grow up watching her mother be treated as less than. Theo reached over and squeezed my hand. We still had a long way to go. Still had counseling appointments and difficult conversations and learning to rebuild what had been broken. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe we were actually on the same side, and that was something worth fighting for.